Welcome to this edition of Valuable Coaching. You can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Also, follow us on Instagram at Valuable Coaching or watch us on YouTube at Valuable Coaching. Today's guest is head strength coach Joey Rossi from the University of Pacific. Let's start the show.
All right, welcome to Valuable Coaching. We're extremely excited today to have a strength coach on with us. Lots of questions to be asked, lots of great answers to be had tonight. We hope you guys can continue to follow us on YouTube, listen to us on Anchor, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and check us out on Instagram at Valuable Coaching, also posting daily videos on Instagram TV as well. But Kevin's going to go ahead and introduce our guest today, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce to you someone who I actually went to college with. And Joey played at the University of the Pacific. He was a men's water polo player, and now he is currently one of the head strength and conditioning coaches at the University of the Pacific that is in the WCC. He specializes in working for all the sports there at the university. We're going to specifically talk to him about volleyball tonight. He did meet his bride and now his wife, Mallory. They're happily married, and they have two wonderful boys living in Ripon, California. Coach Joey, it's so great to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and just happy to be a part of this, and just really happy to give back to the sport that I love.
Awesome. Yeah, we've been excited because a lot of these coaches we've talked to so far, they do seem to want to have players learning how to get in the right condition for volleyball, start building some strength, but they definitely do worry about injury. So I don't know if first you could touch on just where do you think a good jumping off point is for, maybe middle school to lower high school athletes, freshman high school athletes. Where should they kind of get started to really start expanding their game outside of the court?
One of my favorite things to talk about with like young adolescents and strength training is to do simple things, like to find a great coach either at a local high school, take a class, and it's not something you need to really spend a lot of money on. I get a lot of parents like sending kids to Exos and places where it's like, oh, it's $800 a month or something like this a month. It's like, you just need basics and good coaching. So one of the best things you can do is don't worry about really what you're lifting, worry about how you're lifting it, and just really develop kinesthetic awareness. A lot of volleyball players are fast growers, meaning they're tall at a young age, and they're lanky, and you can spot them a mile away because they've grown a foot in 1 year. And it's one of those things where you just want to, again, worry about how you're moving something, not how much you're moving. Full range of motion exercises, and just really closed kinetic chain exercises being squats, deadlifts, single leg squats. Don't worry about Olympic lifting at a young age. And then movement. I've always told people I love meeting, especially middles that have played other sports because they have better feet. They move better. Most volleyball players aren't challenged to move very well unless it's a back row player. But don't be afraid to be a great mover and play volleyball. And I know you guys have probably met some very unathletic volleyball players at times in drills outside of volleyball, but you can always spot a kid that's a multi-sport. And I always say kids should play multiple sports. Specializing at a young age, I think, develops a lot of pathologies and a lot of burnout. So I always challenge kids, and I love meeting kids that do multiple sports, soccer, baseball, anything. And I think it really helps develop that athlete into a better actual athlete, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think we've heard that actually from the coaches too. And I don't know, working with high school athletes, and I'm sure Kevin working with especially club athletes, I think a lot of them have the misconception that they're not going to have the opportunity to get to, Division I level if they're not specializing in their sport. And we're really hearing from now all parties included that's not really the case. So that's great to hear. That's something that I think is important too.
So yeah, Coach Joey, a question I have for you. If I was a senior women's volleyball player going to be heading to Pacific, what type of exercises going into my freshman year should I be preparing for? And what type of exercises do you really do specifically to help with jumping or endurance, or, you can name all the exercises you do for volleyball players?
That's a fantastic question. And I want to help a lot of kids out there. If you've committed to a school, you've signed your letter, one of the best things is to reach out to your head coach, their first assistant, their second assistant, and get in touch with your strength coach. I can't tell you how much I love talking to potential recruits. It's allowed to say, what should I prepare myself for? And we can actually give you sample workouts, but every program is different. At LSU, you're going to be doing Olympic lifting. You're going to be having to bend bars and be very strong potentially. I don't know exactly what they do there, but it's a big time program. But it's one of those things like talk to your strength coach, get the questions answered. Where at our program, it's really, I want to know really how you play volleyball, and I'm going to build a program specific kind of around what we need you to do or where your deficits are at. But I would give a very entry level program meeting. We need to know how to squat bilaterally, meaning 2 feet, back, front, goblet, it doesn't matter. We do a lot of trap bar deadlifting inside the hex bars, kind of better on the shoulders. We do all of our Olympic lifting from the hang position. I don't think volleyball players need to work from the floor very much because you're never really there in that range of motion. And then we do a lot of unilateral work, a lot of single leg work. So RFE split squat, single leg RDL. And then pressing, we don't press too much. I mean, it's one of those things, bench press is cool, but it really doesn't mean a whole lot to me. I care more about almost treating my hitters and my volleyball players like a baseball pitcher. So I really try to secure the shoulder, create a mobilized scap, and really build a durable shoulder for kind of the way we hit and our fast style of volleyball. And again, saying fast means at Pacific, we don't really set the high ball, we set a fast ball. And so there's more efforts and more attempts at that. So we really want to understand close kinetic chain again. So squat, deadlift, hinging, meaning RDLs, Romanian deadlifts. And then I like pull-ups. I really think I like a lot of pull-ups and I like a lot of rows. So I really want to develop a strong back. And one of my favorite things is core. And Kevin, you see me work out all the time. When I was there at Pacific, I really believe in full combat core, meaning we get a lot of volleyball players. When you leave the ground, the only thing you have to really articulate yourself in the air is your core. And it's not just the front abs, guys. There's a lot more to it. We want to have everything strong going around that torso. So again, a very good holistic system. No more than 3 to 4 days a week. I think anyone that does more than that is doing a lot of fluff and not playing enough volleyball.
Yeah, that's a good point, Coach. As a coach, it brings a smile to my face when you started talking about torquing and core. Because like one thing as a coach, I constantly see high schoolers or even college. I'm like, man, they should be torquing more. And to torque on your swing, you got to have a really hard, a really fantastic core. And another thing, you brought up an excellent point. I was fortunate enough to kind of have the presence of mind, or my coach reminded me, is I did reach out to the strength coach before. And what it also helps you is it kind of gives you a little bit of swagger and some clout going into the university, where they're just like, hey, this kid took time out of the day to call. They can tell if you did their workouts. And then it's nerve-wracking your freshman year going into a strength and conditioning program when you have seniors and juniors and they're like really strong, and I wasn't. And if you at least showed the strength coach, look, I did this, I did the effort, and you're like one of only like 4 freshmen that did that, you're going to have that strength and conditioning coach's eye and respect. And I would encourage every athlete to do that. That's sound advice, Coach Joey.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's really easy, guys. We really want to talk. So everyone listening, like, we want to talk to you. It helps us do our jobs. So like, please, like when you sign, you commit, or even if you're just curious, I mean, there's a lot of like NC2A compliance things, but reach out to a program. And a lot of sites have sample workouts. Like if you go on most colleges, Division I level, find strength and conditioning through the athletics webpage, it'll have a sample workout that would emulate that gym. And every university is different. University gym is different. But it's something that's a lot easier to find. And I love our Olympic committee. I think it's ran really well. And you go to the Olympic Training Center and they'll have sample workouts for what those girls are doing. Granted, they're the best in the world, but it's things they're doing as well. So there's a lot of easy things to find through those cool phones you always have.
What do you find is maybe the most common error that people are making in some of those lifts, like squats and deadlifts?
Yeah, I gotta go all day on that. Abbreviated range of motion over full range of motion. And again, that's, I think, worrying about, a lot of people say, volleyball players don't work in a certain range of motion, being below parallel in a squat. So a lot of people let that depth go away, and they define a volleyball player as a long lever athlete, meaning her femurs are longer than her tibs, and she just can't get down that low. And it's like, well, no, that's not true. The load's too heavy and her mobility is awful. So let's rework that, start a real progression, get full range of motion, and then add horsepower. It's like saying all you're going to put in a race car is a bigger engine. That's the easiest thing to do, is add horsepower to a race car, but the most money is spent in the brakes. The most money is spent in suspension. The most computers and engineering is spent in, aerodynamics. There's so much more than horsepower. You've met players that are 165 pounds soaking wet, but can do things that a 215-pound girl can't do. Like, it's unbelievable to see what the force these girls can create. But again, the thing I see is a lot of people worrying about how much they're moving. So they'll let depth go out the way, they'll let form go out of the way, just to get the bar to bend a little bit. But I think really building a system is the most important thing. And I really understand that a lot of volleyball players come in with strong quads. Every volleyball player I see has quads, has glutes, has back, has erectors, but it's like, okay, let's dive into that leg and really look at what do we need to build. Let's not have jumper's knee. Let's not have shin splints. Let's make better breaks, because how the heck do you land? I mean, oh my gosh, have you seen, like, it's always the freeze frame of them up in the air. That's cool, everyone's looking. You ever seen the freeze frame when they come down under the net on one leg and their knees 3 inches inside their foot? It's like, oh my gosh, like, don't do that. You have to sometimes, but let's really look and teach and train to keep them on the court. We always have a saying in our gym, like, you're not here to be a professional weightlifter, you're here to be a professional volleyball player. So you could lift more weight, be stronger in every single lift, but your body could hurt and you could be the worst volleyball player you've ever been. And I always love that argument. It's like, okay, I was a better lifter, but a worse athlete. So what are we trying to do in my room? My room is trying to get you have 0 games missed, healthy, and playing elite level volleyball. And that's something we love to really preach in our gym.
Yeah, Coach, and you touched up on it a little bit, but if you take maybe a raw athlete, come in freshman year, not necessarily out of shape and, very athletic kid, what are some of the most fulfilling moments for you when they go through your program? And what are some of the things that you actually see quickly that they improve on? Is it their vertical jump? Is it their lifting technique? What is it?
I like the second effort jump. I think it's really valuable when an athlete goes down and comes back up. And I always say we add that 1 inch, and it's easy to see. And I always say, I'm not going to make you necessarily win the game, but when the setter sets it at 9.8, when you could only get to 9.7 before and you're there, I get a big smile on my face. So I always say, when I see that 1 inch start to happen, I'm so happy. My favorite is, especially with DS, is when they stop false stepping. So taking that backward step and just attacking through the first step and getting to the ball, because it's 2/100ths to 3/100ths of a second faster, means you get the ball. And I love that. I think it's really fun. I like when the kids obviously get pull-ups, because every girl's like, I can't do a pull-up. And you're like, okay, well, you just got 7. Oh, I'm so excited. And that's a big day for some of them, because they could never do it. But I always I love seeing success on the court in those things. So an athlete just jumping higher or getting into the rotation is another one. Like seeing a girl that didn't have minutes, came in and was a very developmental kid, but has progressed so much in that short amount of time that now she's in the rotation and her block touch has gone up 3 inches and her approach jump has gone up, 3.5. And it's just really cool to see those little things, because that's really why I do what I do.
We just want to take a quick chance to thank our sponsor, One Stone Apparel. Check them out at onestoneapparel.com. They've made us this great polo shirt. Look forward to having it on the show soon. Now back to the show.
Yeah, you brought up something that second jump. It made me think about too, what kind of exercises are you putting players through in order for them to maintain that, their peak touch throughout an entire match? Because we've seen plenty of, the boys or girls who, they'll jump really high the whole first game, and then you get partway through that second game and you can just slowly see them coming down. So again, what kind of things do they do that help them maintain that throughout an entire match?
One thing we want to do is we run complexes in our weight room. So that's like a lift paired with a plyometric paired with an accessory movement. So once our athletes get in, there's a high degree of fitness associated with our lifting. So we're not doing, I love powerlifting, but we're not powerlifting. We're not doing like 2 reps with the bar, taking a 2-minute break, talk a little bit, get another 2 reps with the bar, talk. It's like you're moving the entire time. And we really look at force production and really look at repeatability of strength. We always say we want to be waves against the shore because the ocean turns everything into sand. All right, nothing can withstand that. So it's not that first jump. It's not. It's the back half of the game where we want to crush people. And again, and Coach Gibbons gives me great athletes to work with. It's fun to see us outlast teams because we do that consistently, and that's having a plan. One of the most important things in that question is have a planning and make sure you're doing something linear or to a desired effect. So repeated effort box jumps are huge, and just developing overall like total body strength is big. People get a lot of arguments like, why do I have to squat 300 pounds when I only have to jump my body weight? Well, okay, I can squat 500 pounds. And who do you think can rep that bar out by itself more, you or me? Because I can rep it out 100 times because I can squat 500. You can only rep it out 22 times because you only can squat 270, 280. So being strong is good. Then using that strength means you can use it more. So again, repeatability. So you got to have plyometrics in your program, real plyometrics, not like pretending to jump. Like real plyometrics are incredibly demanding, and you shouldn't do them until you have a base level of strength. So again, having that base level strength is really important. And then again, it's understanding what that athlete's need is. So understanding that maybe not everyone needs more horsepower. Maybe someone needs more suspension. So a kid's too tight to get that second effort jump. She needs more ankle flexibility and dorsiflexion. And that's the ability for the ankle just to move over the tib and things like that. But squats, RFE, we do a lot of hip thrust, a lot of hang position Olympics, and then a lot of plyometrics, meaning just basic box jumps, box blasts, and depth jumps, where you move off a small box, create force quickly to get on top of a much larger box. So that emulates that second effort jump or that second block attempt. And that's one thing is a staple in our programs consistently.
So, Coach, I'm curious to know, at least when we were there and you were a student athlete, and they would go over it. But now with the new NCAA rules, there's now a training table. The kids have to in the morning get their food. How much also along with weights and conditioning and plyometrics, how much are you also a nutritionist for these programs and talking to the student athletes about healthy food choices, or is that part of your gig too?
Yeah, it is. It's a huge, I'd say if you had like 4 meals provided for you, you wouldn't even need me because you probably win more games. But it's amazing what some kids eat. I mean, some kids come to college. We have a talk we give to recruits. It's okay, like, what's your situation like at home? Is mom and dad doing all the cooking? Do you eat out a lot? What do you do? Because it's such a big part in that recruiting visit to educate them, especially on a recruit we really, really want. It's saying when that transition comes to college and mom and dad aren't there, or someone's not there that does all the cooking, do you know how to cook? And I don't know, Kevin, what you think. Like when you first got to college, you're like, wait, I don't even know how to boil water.
Yeah.
Maybe that was your situation. And there's a big time lapse of, I don't know how to cook. I don't even have pots and pans. So we really talk to those high level recruits about start making, a meal a week with mom, dad, brother, uncle, aunt, whoever it is, and learn things you like. Learn how to go to the grocery store. I have gone to grocery stores with athletes and taught them. I've had athletes from all over the world, and some thought, tomato sauce was actually ketchup. So he was putting ketchup on his spaghetti, and it was really funny. I was like, that's not tomato paste. That's ketchup. And I love that athlete, and name nameless, but he's an amazing athlete. But it's huge. It's almost more important than what I do. If you give me a high level athlete and I teach them how to eat correctly, they'll be fine. But we talk a lot about protein, especially with our female athletes. There's a taboo really about getting too big and too strong. And I always say, just date a bigger guy, and it's just like, you're not going to become a bodybuilder by eating protein. Some girls think they're going to develop and be like a linebacker. It's like, girls, that's not what's going to happen. It's real eating. And what I love about media today is you can really see what like Mega Rampino or Jen joins, but way back, or someone's like how they eat and what they eat to be the best. Destiny Hooker, like all these amazing players, like they eat real food. I'm a big Katie Ledecky fan because I'm in the swimming world a lot too, and she posts everything, and people are amazed, like how do you or do that? And Carly Lloyd, same thing, great person as an example to say like they have to eat to fuel the body, guys. So we'll even turn athletes away that don't eat enough. Like we have weigh-ins and BMI scores and all these different things, body fat analysis and muscle mass analysis, and say like, your job's just to eat better. And if you're not getting in 3 meals, 2 snacks, there's no point. And along with that comes hydration. Like a lot of volleyball players don't really drink a lot of water. You don't think they really go through it until a game happens and they're sweating through their shirts. And it's just, yeah, you need water to make your joints happy, make your cells happy. All these things are holistic. And we try to use as many examples as we can, but it is something we really try to teach. And there's things coming around now that make it complicated. Kids want to be vegan and things like that. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I don't care, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
And let's educate you on how to be vegan, because a lot of kids think it's lettuce. It's like, it's not. You can't just eat lettuce. Like, that's not going to work out well for you.
Yeah. I definitely remember, you brought up being a freshman in college. I didn't have to know how to cook. I had the highest meal plan you could have. And that actually was a huge benefit because I was actually getting enough calories to get stronger during that time. And that was a different feeling. And then, you get into the season where you had practice and some weights and games and not as much time to eat. And all of a sudden you're losing weight again. So yeah, definitely making sure you get enough calories is huge. And that would be, I think, my experience working with younger female athletes, that would be hard to make sure that you get them to understand that that's okay. And that, you're working so hard, you're not going to be putting on, a bunch of extra weight. You're just going to be getting stronger. So
yeah, the taboo is crazy with people thinking like I can eat like this, and you're like that's like you're not going to play volleyball very well eating like that. I mean, your servings are all wrong. And we'll use what the Olympic Training Center says, because I can only do so much, and I'll consult and use our RD on campus and have her really do, because some kids have some kids have some things that I really don't touch because it's things that are above me. But I'm very confident in the basics. But if it's something where we see a need of, a diabetic or something like that, we'll not push them off, but move them on to our RD, because it's a more serious conversation that needs some medical professionals. But agreed completely.
Yeah. Awesome. What I remember it as the blue room there at Pacific, but the room kind of across from the weight room. Those were some of the worst days, like you said, doing core. So again, if you could give, maybe 5 great core exercises that you would have, younger athletes focus on, what would those be? And, if maybe some that don't need any equipment, and then, maybe some ones that would be, what's a good piece of equipment for somebody to have either in their home gym or to find at a gym to help their core?
Yeah, for volleyball, it's really interesting. Like you get a lot of back strains, like a lot of back spasms, things like that from how people land. So we do a lot of bridging. So core is fun. It can be isometric or concentric, meaning movement based or standing still. I love cable chops, high to low, low to high. And you can do those with a mini band or any type of resistance. You can do it with a gallon jug of water. And you can YouTube that and find that. But then I really like psoas marches. Hips are so important. And when you do a psoas march correctly, it's just very difficult. And then dead bugs are one of the other ones we do a ton of. And the last one would be a bird dog, just through extension. And it's just 4 great exercises that if you put into your program, I would say are really great. I would stay away from leg lifts and things that cross the hip and the low back, because you get a lot of like lingering problems from that. But like core doesn't have to just be crunches. There's a lot of other things you can do. So kids that are just hammering out, 10,000 crunches, which I was that guy. I used to do about 10,000 crunches a day, and it took about 45 minutes to get done. But it's just things like you just shouldn't do that, and there's a lot of things, but those would be my favorite.
And then coach, let's just take a women's volleyball at Pacific, for example. Mm-hmm. What is the, let's start when season's done. So it's, let's say in a normal non-COVID year, it's all the way through the end of December, how you're training that team, because most of them stay on campus the whole summer and they don't really go home. So
Yeah.
what's the phases you work with them, and how do you, get them ready for that upcoming year?
I'll kind of glaze over because there's a lot of details in that. But one of the biggest things is get a break, take a break for a week or so, let the body rest. For high minute players, low minute players can come right in and get to work, because there might be more than one program going on. Like if all your team is doing the exact same thing, it's potentially not the best, I'd say, reflection of your strength and conditioning program, because you have high rotation players and low rotation players. So after season, rest the body, probably finals or something's happening. But coming back, it's really getting to work. It's understanding like where we either succeeded or failed. So talking with coach, who he wants to see develop, and understanding what the goals are for them. So we would start another phase, trying to get as much new exposure to our direction before summer happens. Because most of the kids, when that happens, will get released for one session and then come back for two and be all the way into fall. So after season break, really start with our new direction. Most likely going to be very simple lifts, building back strength, building back hypertrophy, getting muscle size back on. And then we want to convert that muscle size into something usable. So I always say go to hypertrophy and then go to strength. And then from strength, we go to power. Then we just recycle that. And we could probably get 3 cycles of that before fall. So it'd be potentially that first, so January break. Sorry, that's how my brain works. We have the season, take a break, hypertrophy, 8s, 10s, 12s, 5 sets, and then from there, we would change that before summer to do our heavier work, because we want to be supervised. And then when we release them, we kind of go more into power work because it's a little bit lighter. There's a more conditioning emphasis because some of the kids aren't active enough, and we want to make sure to keep their weight down and their power up. So we use that phase. And when they come back, we redo the whole thing. So they come back, we have that test, say, did you do your job or did you not? Verticals down or up, you didn't do anything. That's a fail. Sorry. But and then we just go right back into it, because we would see new athletes join at that time. So that's a hard part in being a strength coach, is you have this old team. Now we have new freshmen, transfers, internationals coming into a team. We build a lot of team cohesion in that, struggle together, win together, and build that family atmosphere. And then we just transition them back in. So again, you'd see hypertrophy in summer 2. Then we go again to just reconvene that and just keep going and keep going and keep going, if that makes sense. When games come, it gets really complicated, because with games come, you look at so many things like travel, who's playing what, how much they're playing, how much rest they get. But we take the reps way down. A lot of jumpers don't like to train lower body once it comes time to go, but you really still have to, just to be appropriate. And we do a lot on ACL prevention, a lot on labral prevention, and that's that thing you're seeing a lot of now, which is like kids that are just blown out from too much hitting. So we do a lot of things to prevent that injury. So we train all the way through, and you should be your strongest when you're playing volleyball competitively and when it really matters in conference. So you want to make sure your program emulates that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Kevin had brought up, actually, some coaches think that maybe the volleyball schedule should be changed around. I'm just curious what your thought is, if you think it'd be more conducive to the athletes if they were playing their season in the spring and were able to come in the fall.
Working with so many different sports, men and women, I think those teams always have a distinct advantage and a lot less injuries, just because it's more time to be seen by your coaches and more time to develop and find that rhythm. When there's so many things, like you said, that come into being a college athlete, student athlete, that's your schedule, where you're living, and how you do your time. So there's just so much some of these kids are hit with. It'd be great to have more time to prep with them, because sometimes you don't. It's like, ex-athlete potentially came in out of shape, didn't do anything, or had adverse circumstances. Some kids just, I've had a lot of kids from around the world, and gyms in other places in the country are extremely expensive, or they're just not able to get to them. So I would agree with that. I actually like that idea a lot. I would be a fan.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the Big Ten coaches from Nebraska has always just pushed it. And we'll see. I mean, they're kind of going to do it this year because of COVID. So we'll see. I do think because of COVID, maybe things will shake up when we go back to the normal world, and we might learn, things that took place. This will be my last question for you, and then I'm sure Miles will have a few more. But what have you had to do to get creative with COVID going on? I mean, to keeping your student athletes. So if I'm a senior or junior, like in San Diego Unified where I work, there's no school right now. What are some things kids can do at home if they don't have a gym, or what creative things have you told your athletes to do to keep them in shape?
We actually developed, like I said, we try to keep our hitters and most of our volleyball players, we treat their shoulders like a pitcher would. So to emulate hitting, it's really hard to do that. You can, create devices and hit against your garage door and do that as much as you want. Some kids just don't have access to that stuff. So we say we emulate little throwing programs like grab a baseball, grab a football, play catch with somebody. And that's worked pretty well. And then really we're just trying to harp on fitness, making sure we're fit enough to come back and play volleyball. We've written programs for people that have 2 dumbbells, 1 med ball, and a jump rope. You've written programs for people that have entire whole gyms. And we've just really done a lot to say, like, you're doing as best you can in these circumstances. And we don't want to stress a kid to make them feel like they're going to be unsuccessful. So we just say, you're doing great. Like, this is such an amazing, like, crazy time we're in that we want to build kids up. So if you only have a med ball, well, guess what? We're going to write you the best dang program we can for that med ball. And when you come back, we're going to get to work. And that's one of the best things about our coaches, and they understand that. Is there pressure? Yeah. If I can, I've done a lot with catalogs too. I've actually talked to a lot of our vendors and said, like, I've sent kids the catalog and say, there's these things you can purchase if you have the means to. If you don't worry about it. You can also fill up gallon jugs of water, and you can, build things if you want. But we really left it up to kind of the desires of those student athletes. And because again, some kids, it's like they have stay-at-home orders, they can't even go outside. But a lot of at home, a lot of fitness, a lot of calisthenic. And it's, believe it or not, some kids have come back in amazing shape. Like, I've talked to strength coaches around the country, and it's amazing, again, what push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, and running can do for an athlete. Like, it's pretty simple. And it's something that when you really dive into, you can come back in this pandemic and be in the best shape of your life. And we've seen it across multiple athletes in our program that we don't even recognize them. We're like, whoa, what did you do? It's like, I just trained every day. Like, wow, good for you.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have any other questions pertaining necessarily to volleyball. I think this has been great. We've definitely been hearing that everybody thinks that this is an important aspect of this. And I always thought it has been. And, I see lots of high schools that have great resources in terms of weight rooms and tracks and space to use for this. And I don't think it gets really utilized enough unless you're the football team or you got a high level basketball team. I think kind of like you said, it's, maybe especially for some of the women's sports, it's looked over. It's like, they're not going to go and lift. We don't want them getting really strong. My hope is that more people will get into it, and then, they'll certify more teachers to help out with that, or bring in consultants to help them out. Do you think that's something that you could see happening and you'd like to see happen?
Yeah, I think I'm a pedagogy undergrad, and I love the way things kind of used to be, and not where PE is being cut around the country and kids don't play any type of high school sport or take gym anymore or anything like that. You got to go to CrossFit and spend, $600 to lift a weight. And it's like, golly, man, like, it shouldn't be like that. Like, gyms, I mean, weights are my life. Like, weights really saved my life and helped me so much that I think every kid should be lifting weights. And I think there's so many different things to do. And it's one of those things where I wish you'd see more of it in unified schools. CrossFit is an unbelievable organization, and there's a lot of people doing it not great, and there's some that are doing it amazing. I've seen schools partner with local CrossFit gyms, and they come on campus and do an amazing job. But sometimes I think it's a lot of these parents, like I said, just want to send their kid to some elite gym, elite club somewhere across the country. And it's like, you just need basics. And it's a lot of fun for kids. Some of these kids, they have so much stress and anxiety and worry, and weights could help you with that. It's one of those things, like, get under a bar, like, take some of that stress out, take some of that anxiety out, be physically active, and don't worry so about what you're playing. Just go out and play. Put your phone down is my message to every kid. I don't like phones. I tell all my athletes, don't bring those things in here. I don't want to see them. You're on those things too much, and just get away from them. Go interact. So I would agree with you. in the sense that there could be a lot done to help with physical education in the United States, California, and the world. And I'm a big fan of it continuing to grow and kids learning like more and more about it. So I think it's a great thing to hopefully see more and more across the country.
Yeah. Well, Coach Joey, I don't know, like 13, 12 years ago, I think I met you, and it is no surprise to me the success you're having. I do think the University of the Pacific is a special place. I think it's really cool that you got all three of your degrees there. You're getting your PhD, and I know you've done the Tiger family proud. And I'm just personally, as a friend, really, really proud of you. And I'm really glad we had you on. And one thing that's been a common theme is these coaches are like, every one of them we talked to talks about strength and conditioning, the importance of it, how sometimes the kids are doing it the wrong way coming in. And I think you answered a lot of questions that we as volleyball coaches couldn't answer. And we are so lucky that we got to reach out to you, and on a whim, you're like, yes, let's do this. So I can't thank you enough. And I only wish you the best. And if you ever need anything, you always know you can reach out to me.
Yeah, I do. And same. And again, guys, love to be back on if if you guys get a lot of questions. And one of the best things that we see is that same movement across the country in sports is people realize the strength coach is really interacts with your athletes probably the most, because we're at practice, we're with them in the gym, we're with them in breaks, and we can see them more than the coaches can. So it's one of those things. It's great to see our profession get more traction. And it's just one of the best jobs in the world, because you get to really help young student athletes develop themselves in a lot of different facets. So thank you guys for having me, and I'd love to be back anytime.
All right. Well, thank you. We'll definitely hit you up on that, either for sport or for physical education, and we'll look forward to it. So thank you so much. It was really great to have you on.
Cool.
Hey, thank you guys for listening to another edition of Valuable Coaching. You can follow us on Twitter at ValuableCoachy1. You can follow us on Instagram at Valuable Coaching. Check us out on Facebook, Valuable Coaching, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on Google Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. You guys have a great day.